Welcome to episode 2 of BaseVision Inside Security. Today we are talking about the impact of user and device life cycles on employees. With me is Dania and Yannick, which have a lot of experience in this area. And we had already a talk in episode 1 about more the technical side of user provisioning. But now with Dania, we have also someone from HR here, and I would like to ask first, what is the impact of these provisioning services, of this new method on HR side?
So for me, from the HR point of view, it's really important that the employee, if he starts, that he has everything he needs to start well in the company. So, the first impression always matters. It's really important that if he starts at a company, that he has the device, that everything is set up well, that he can really start well on the first day of working. So to have that, of course, there's a lot of little steps in before the onboarding which needs to be done, and that the employee can start smoothly and well prepared. And those steps, they always take a lot of time, and it's really important that they are all going well together. There's like different stakeholders which are involved in this process. So with this new process or this new tools we use, the whole onboarding process can be automated. If the whole process can be automated, everything is triggered well, it works well together. So to do that, of course, there was a lot of automation needs to be done, and to have that, of course, Yannick helped us a lot in this process. Maybe you can explain a little bit more on the technical side, how you did that and how you could achieve that.
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, there are a lot of aspects which and a lot of little gears which have to come into the right place in order for that whole process to manage. Because, as you mentioned, we have multiple stakeholders. So if you look as the traditional process, or how the process is usually before, you have HR, they get information, okay, there's a new employee coming. Then somehow that information needs to be transferred from HR to IT. IT sets up the account, etc. And then it's usually more of an IT topic, right? And I mean, with what we talked about in episode 1 with the user provisioning, we already bridged that gap between HR and IT, so that in the IT system, the user already starts to live, right? So we have the identity there with the right attributes. And then we can take that user identity and start wrapping automations around it, right? To set it up for success. So one of the most important attributes that we have is the employee hire date for the onboarding, because this says, okay, well, it says, and that's again a definition, is it either the first working day of the employee or the start of the contract? Whatever, you can populate it with that value. And then you can start triggering automations that happen before or after or on that date, right? Like you mentioned, device onboarding, right? We at BaseVision, we have a choose your own device model where we're using Autopilot to provision those devices, which means the user receives then his access credentials already before he can start it at the company. And then on the first working day, he gets access to all the internal tools, right? Which works for a pretty seamless onboarding experience.
So you mentioned now a lot of automation. I think that's also a big change compared to a lot of other identity and access management projects which I have seen in the past. A lot of them are failing because everyone tried to automate everything. But I think there is a difference how we do these things with Entra ID. We are leveraging more and more self-service, so user can request the right package, what he needs. Can you explain a little bit more about that as well?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I mean, right, so one important thing is to assess okay, what permissions does a user need, right, in order to be able to work? And that may differ depending on the department that you're in. I guess somebody in HR will need different permissions than I do as an IT person, right? So that's definitely something that you need to sit down to see, okay, which tools do we have, what roles do we have inside of the company, and what factors move somebody into a role. You maybe even have people which have multiple roles, right? They are working in marketing and finance as an example, or in the administration and marketing, or in different IT teams, right? So, and then to start mapping those use cases, and then you can use access packages to automatically assign those accesses that every employee, when he starts, at least has the right permissions for his primary role in order to get up and working.
Okay. And another topic what also simplified onboarding beside the device enrollment, and is also a huge problem I think at a lot of customers, is enabling MFA. That was mostly a huge rollout project because it requires a lot of communication and users. You have countries where they don't want to use their private mobile phone number, don't install the authenticator app somewhere. And I think there was also a big innovation with the phishing resistant authentication methods directly done in this project, which was more or less seamless. Can you explain also a little bit how does the user get credentials then?
Yeah, sure. So basically, as mentioned before the user has his first working day, we provide them via a secure way, a temporary access pass with Entra ID, which sort of is a time-based password, which also satisfies phishing resistant or multi-factor authentication claims that you might have in order to access a resource. And with that, the user can start the autopilot process from the beginning, sign in, and then, of course, later we have the challenge, okay, the user wants to set up Windows Hello for Business, so he needs MFA, right? And then we can leverage the web signing credential provider on Windows, where the user can sign in using the temporary access pass, set up Windows Hello, and then he has his first authentication method, which enables him to do MFA on a Windows device, right? And then the second thing is, well, as part of that email where the user gets this secure credential, we're also providing him with PDF files attached, which contain step-by-step guides, which guide the user through the whole autopilot process, the setup of his mobile device, and of course also there's a guide on how to set up your passkey with a Microsoft Authenticator, right? So we can set up a phishing-resistant authentication method, and with having that temporary access pass, it's actually very easy from an end-user perspective. You just sign in using the tab into Authenticator, and your passkey is already created. How wonderful is that?
Yeah, I think you can tell the best. What is the feedback of employees about the new onboarding process?
So of course the feedback is really positive because the whole process is around the employee and how the employee can work best or start in a company. So the feedback is that they get everything at the right time, and because this process is also well triggered and well automated, they get everything at the needed time. For example, if we have done all the security checks, they get the access already before they start at the company, and if they have that already done before, they can come at the first working day and concentrate on the things they really want to do at the company. So it's really about keeping them in the center and have the process which they can benefit most of it. And also from the administration time or for the HR side, we can save a lot of time in this process because Yannick explained a lot of the things are automated and are going automatically to the employees, things like that. So HR wise, we have less to do with these little topics and to keep everything together and have also to have the part where we have to contact IT, things like that. So if we have those automated, we from the HR side have more time to to care about the employees, how they are doing, how did the onboarding go, and call them after the first week because we have more time because our processes are automated in the end. Yeah.
So the role of HR has also changed a little bit back to more being HR, being there for the employees. But is there also a drawback of that? Probably, because before probably everything was flexible. Yes, can you do this now shortly or so?
Yes.
What are the impacts which you have felt there already?
So what we experience, for example, is that if those processes are automated and the lead is new with the HR, so if the HR doesn't set a date right or something like that, or if they start, for example, if you have a quick onboarding or a special case with like different role, things like that, HR needs to consider that and check how we can do that, trigger those flows automatically or manually, because sometimes they don't work automatically. So the lead is really with HR, so HR has more responsibility over that those tasks. But that's also really good because in my opinion, HR is responsible that the employees are happy and they can start in a good way, or they are prepared for the work. So they are closer to the employees and they can help them. For example, if an onboarding task is not working, or if the access rights are failing, they can contact us and we can help them directly instead of going through the HR and then to do the technical part, things like that. So it's easier.
So it has simplified as
Yes.
well, but it shifted.
It shifted the responsibility a little bit. Yeah.
Good. So we now talked just about the onboarding of new employees. How was this, what is the impact on mutations and also the termination of employment? How is the impact of the deprovisioning at the end?
So in the end, it works pretty much in the same way as the onboarding did. So we have those flows, we have those packages which we have automated. So for example, if we have a change in a role, so we can just change that in our HR tool, or you can change it there, and then automatically all the flows are triggered again for like the access management, and also directly that the signature is changing and the rights are changing, things like that. That is automatically done. And also for the offboarding there, of course, as well, if you set the offboarding date, and then the flows are automatically triggered from that date. And maybe you can add a little bit technical details to that.
With the mutations, actually the provisioning logic does a lot there for you, because as Tanya mentioned, if we have a change of an attribute within the HR system, like somebody changes a department or gets a new job title or whatever, that is always automatically reflected then within your identity environment, which is an Entra ID, right? And then also probably changed in your connected systems, which we have connected to Entra ID. The other thing is, of course, about the offboarding. There we have sort of a similar story as with the onboarding. We have there the attribute called employee leave date time, right? Where HR populates, okay, at which what is the last time frame or the last day and hours where the employee is actually working for us, right? And afterwards, we want to ensure that that employee no longer has access, right? Because he's no longer, his contract might still run, but he's sort of no longer working for us, which means we want to revoke access. And there again, you can build up these lifecycle workflows, or you can do very simple stuff that is built in, available by Microsoft, like disable the user account, right? To revoke all active access that the user has, remove the users from any groups that he might have had, right? To make sure, okay, even if you would somehow get back into that account, that he no longer has access. And then there's, of course, more advanced stuff that you can do, which again goes also a little bit into the device lifecycle, where we say, hey, we want to offboard all devices that we have from that employee from our management system, which means the device gets removed from Intune. They are depending if it's a corporate-owned device or a personal device. We do different remote actions to offboard that device. We remove the device from Entra ID to make sure that our infrastructure is clean and we don't have any sort of stale objects in there. And we, of course, also offboard or exclude the device from our Defender reports to make sure, okay, this is a the offboarded device. It no longer spoofs our reports, etc. And with that, we make sure that, everything the user gets offboarded, and after a certain amount of time, we delete the user account in the directory.
And from HR sides, this gives us also more confidence in being sure that all the accesses have been deleted, and the account is really also if a role changes. For example, if someone was a team lead in one department and now goes to another team, that the old access are no longer available for him. So we can ensure that the quality of the access management is also on a high level, and that everyone can work in a smooth way. And there in the mutations and also with the offboarding, the goal is always to make it as simple as possible for the employees. So they don't have to care, oh, can I please get all access to that department or whatever, so that everything goes automatically in the back end.
Yeah. So I think that sounds great, because we have then a clean environment, employees are happy, are faster onboarded, so we can also lower the costs there. But what is about the project? How big or how much effort has this taken? Now, just as an example, can you estimate this a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
So maybe if I may start,
yeah, sure.
First things really important was that we have Yannick mentioned in the beginning, it's really important that we have a clear structure of what is actually going on in the onboarding process. So what kind of steps do we have? What kind of groups do we have? Which group needs access to what? As the better you do that, or are already prepared with those kind of topics, the quicker the process is going. So if you have that clean already before you start the project, I don't know, it's like a smaller effort that you may think.
Yeah, so definitely. So there's really, the question is, okay, what do you actually want to automate, right? Which factors play today in your HR, IT onboarding and offboarding process like. And I think there's also really important that IT and HR talk together, because there are maybe things that they're doing differently or have a different opinion on. So those processes need to be aligned, right? So first know what do you want to automate, how should the new process look like? And then there's of course another aspect which is called data cleansing. So when we are going to connect your Active Directory or Entra ID to your HR system, you want to do some sort of data cleansing first. So you want to check, okay, do we have gaps between what data we have today in the HR system, what gaps we have in our AD or Entra ID? Because otherwise, if maybe the data is even wrong in the HR system and you start connecting those two systems with each other, you get wrong values with an AD or Entra ID, and that might lead to bad employer feedback, because you have then people saying, hey, my job title, my signature is wrong, right? So things like that, and then so that needs to be done. And then of course, what is also important, you need to fill in those matching attributes where you say, hey, we have in HR system, we have the employee number, we add this to the object in AD or Entra ID, so in order that it knows, okay, this is the matching object, sort of the primary key, in order that it knows, oh, this is now the employee ID of Daniel, so when I send data related to that, it will update this user object.
But if these basic steps are there and you have thought about it, then it's a few hundred hours. Do I see that correctly?
Yes, I mean, in the end, it really comes down to the complexity of your automations. I mean, we really went into the details and did a lot there. So, and then of course, it also depends on how advanced your automations need to be. How much knowledge do you already have in terms of APIs, how APIs work, especially APIs within the Microsoft ecosystems? Do you know logic apps, etc.? Because with logic apps, you can basically build anything that you want. So anything that supports an API, you can automate it with that. But yeah, it really depends on how many things that you want to automate, and the complexity of those automations.
But it's definitely a big change compared to how an identity and access management project looked like 2-3 years back with other tool sets, because it's just a different thinking what Entra ID brought in with its provisioning service, then also Windows Autopilot, phishing resistant authentication, and all these new technologies. So I think that's the end of this episode, and I hope you learned a lot, and we will definitely have deep dive sessions in the future about Autopilot more, also phishing resistant authentication, and other topics which support this process as well.